Hi, I'm Jim McCann, founder of 1-800-Flowers. We created this podcast to share the wonderful people we get to interact with, we get to meet, we get to know, and most importantly, get to learn from. So I invite you to join us on this journey here on the Celebrations Chatter podcast. Here today with Dr. Nicole Saphier, who's got an interesting book out called Love Mom, and here it is. Nicole, you have such an interesting personal story in your journey to writing this book and sharing these stories with all of us. Share a little bit about your background. Where were you born? Where'd you grow up? What's this path been like?
We all have a story. Mine is maybe a little different than many people. I was born in Arizona, born and raised there. And I didn't...
No, people only move there. No one's born there.
So, you know what? It wasn't until my adulthood that I moved back east. And everyone's like, no, you have it backwards. Most people do the other way around. Well, I just like to keep things interesting myself. So born and raised in Arizona. My parents are from back east, but they met out going to college at Arizona State University, and they stayed there.
What a neat place to go to school.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was a good student, honor student, competitive gymnast, cheerleader. But where, my life kind of took a very significant turn was when I was in high school. At the age of 17, that summer between junior and senior year of high school, I became pregnant. And, that's a very difficult time for me emotionally. And with the support of my faith and my family, I made the decision to have my child. So I was that statistic. I was the pregnant teenager walking the halls senior year of high school. And I would be lying if I said it was easy. But it was certainly,
Can't imagine.
Certainly isolating and lonely. And I went through all the expected emotions. But, the decision to have my son created the person that I am today. And I couldn't imagine life any other way. But I did certainly have a lot of doubters in the beginning saying that, if I continued on with the pregnancy, there's no way I would ever be able to have a successful professional life. So I've done everything I possibly could the next 24 years to prove everyone wrong.
And so far it's working out pretty well.
I'm still going.
And I'm still, you have more goals and dreams to accomplish. But tell me, how important, it seems to me, you referenced it, you touched on it, but how important is it to have parents who sucked it up and was supportive of you through them? Could you have done it without that?
You know what? I can't imagine having done it without my family. Now, both of my parents had very different responses when I told them I was pregnant. I told them separately, not at the same time. My mother, on one end of the spectrum, she said, whatever you decide to do, you're going to be fine, and I'll be right by your side every step of the way. My dad.
Now, Nicole, you've told this story before, I'm sure, but when you tell it now, do some of the emotions of that time come back?
Well, I really wrote in detail about it in the book, and I will tell you, when I put together my story, it was more difficult than I expected it to be. I certainly was recounting a lot of emotions that I felt at that time. It was really hard. I mean, there was feelings of depression, isolation, loneliness, being afraid. And so, it was really hard. And then when I told my dad the same thing, he was just devastated because he was worried that life was going to be hard for me. And he was sad for me. He wasn't mad at me. But his initial reaction wasn't, well, whatever you do, it's going to be great. He was more kind of stuck in that moment of, oh my gosh, this is going to be so hard for you.
Well, it's understandable. That's the reaction I have listening to this as a parent and a grandparent. Your concern is for how hard it's going to be. But tell us, how did you have the support of parents? How does life go on from there? What comes next? You continue to get good grades and stay in school?
Well, so you said it right there. Life goes on. And it does. You may not be going on the same path. You just have to kind of carve out a different path. And so that's what I did. So my plan had always been to go east for college. I was desperate to go east. Something drew me to New York City. Now that I was facing having a child even before my high school graduation, I knew going east was not really in the cards for me. How was I going to go with a newborn single mom 3,000 miles away? So I couldn't do that. So things changed a little bit, and I started at ASU. I graduated high school in May, and then I started college in September. I was breastfeeding. I was working 30 hours a week, and I had a newborn baby, but I was still able to complete my studies while working. I really leaned on family. I really leaned on friends. Everyone really came together and did everything they could to support me, which was just so crucial. Sometimes people think leaning on other people is a sign of weakness. I actually think it's a sign of strength to lean on other people, because they help prop you up and they make you stronger. So I went to college, and then I decided.
It's not just the help of the time, it's the emotional support as much as anything, I'm guessing.
Of course, because you know that you're not in this alone, and you're able to share that weight of the world with other people. And, it's great. And there's people that are there, they're kind of cheerleading you to just keep going in those moments of doubt, which we all have, where we doubt whether we're actually going to be able to keep going.
So how long did it take you to get through ASU?
Well, I was able to do it in 4 years. It was not the easiest thing, but
I'd say.
So one of the themes throughout
college was 7 of the best years of my life.
I will be honest, I knew that I had to keep going. I couldn't take time off because I was so tired physically and mentally at that time that I felt if I took time off, or if I didn't just go, that I was afraid that I would stop for good. So that really kind of propelled me to keep going.
And then what came next?
Well, and then medical school, which was
right away.
Right away. Couldn't stop. I was tired and I couldn't stop.
And had medical school been a dream all along, or has something happened while you were in school and now you're a mom, you have all these responsibilities? Did it bubble up as an idea then?
Well, I think most people who go into healthcare have an idea when they're younger they want to be a doctor. What that even means to you at that time, you have no idea. My grandmother died actually while I was already in medical school. And so while I knew I wanted to be a doctor, I didn't know what kind I wanted to be. And when my grandmother died from advanced breast cancer, between my second and third year of medical school, I realized that I wanted my professional passion to be early detection of cancer, so that I could maybe save other people from going through what she went through with early detection.
So you graduate from medical school. Where do you do your residency? And is your residency right away in radiology?
So I graduated and I went straight into my internship, and then I went straight into my radiology residency. So that was 5 years. And then I did another year at Mayo Clinic for breast and women's oncologic imaging. And so now I'm a diagnostic and interventional radiologist with specializes in early detection of breast cancer.
That's terrific. And tell me, Nicole, you stay on top of everything that's going on in your profession. You broadcast dramatically the changes in medicine, in particular in radiology. What are your thoughts about how AI will play a role in your role very, very soon?
A lot of people, obviously AI is a very popular topic right now. As radiologists, we've been using some form of artificial intelligence for at least a decade, and more than that, to be honest. I think on one hand, it's great. It will absolutely enhance our ability for early detection, decreasing false positives. Can that pendulum swing too far where if you take that human touch out of it, that will actually be a detriment to the patient? Absolutely. But I think working together, humans and AI, we could maximize when it comes to healthcare.
10 years ago, someone was diagnosed with breast cancer and someone diagnosed today. What's the difference in treatments? What's the difference in potential outcomes in that 10-year time frame?
I mean, I'm happy to say so much has changed in the last decade. Breast cancer is certainly not one size fits all. There are many different types, and they respond differently to different treatments. And a couple things that we have noticed over the last decade of breast cancer is some of the molecular biology behind it. And rather than just blasting everyone with, more of a comprehensive chemotherapy, we're able to target the tumors more specifically to their makeup. So whether it is what we call triple negative, triple positive, there are some and others, we're able to really target with immunotherapy and more targeted chemotherapies. We have also advanced in our radiation techniques. Instead of this large whole breast radiation, oftentimes we're able to do different fractionated doses to a smaller area, which can cause less toxicity to other areas. So breast cancer treatment today is in a much better place than it was 10 years ago, certainly much better than it was 20, 30 years ago. And I can tell you, 5, 10 years from now, it's going to be even better.
I bet. And I expect that the pace of change is quickening.
You know, it really is. We're seeing new things every single year. And, especially when it comes to lung cancer, melanomas, I mean, even breast cancer, people are surviving so much longer because of these treatments. The term stage 4 cancer diagnosis or metastatic cancer, often in some patients, we're able to treat these as chronic illnesses, almost like cardiovascular disease or diabetes, and they are able to live much longer lives than they ever would before.
I'll ask you to speculate, but why is it you think that we're seeing cancers earlier? Seems to me more frequently. And for example, colorectal cancer. This is something only old people we heard about 20 years ago. And now we're hearing about teenagers with colorectal cancer. Is it environmental? It can't be genetic. What's your best guess as to why it seems to me that we're seeing more of these now and earlier?
Well, undoubtedly, we are seeing a lot of cancers much younger. And when we talk about in younger people, we're not necessarily talking about kids. We're talking about younger adults, below the age of 55, below the age of 50. And just last year, a huge article came out really highlighting some of the cancers that we're seeing an uptick in, specifically, as you mentioned, colorectal cancer, and even more specifically from that, appendiceal cancer, certain breast cancers, and others. So when you look at why is this happening, my first book actually was all about some lifestyle behaviors that we can actually change the course of our health. About 50% of cancers potentially could have been prevented with some simple lifestyle choices. And so environmental factors obviously are going to play a major role in the development of disease, specifically these. In the United States, we tend to have a lot of processed foods. We tend to be away from the more natural organic foods, and that is going to contribute. I mean, if you look back to 50 years ago when we didn't necessarily have the big food industry that we do now, what we are consuming is certainly starting to reflect in our increased cancer rates. But it's not just about the food that we eat. It's about the air we breathe. It's about the creams and stuff that we put on our bodies. Just in the last couple of years, it's become, quite known that a lot of the chemicals in skin cancer are actually cancer-causing chemicals. So just imagine that concept. For the last couple of decades, we've been putting on the sun protectants that actually have to protect us from cancer that actually have cancer-causing chemicals in it. I mean, and then it just takes us a while to realize it. And so all of this kind of together is a culmination of leading to more cancers. And we are actually finding more mutations that are coming, and that's likely due to our environmental exposures.
There's no day like a birthday. It's a time to celebrate. Every year, every wish that brought you to this point. Wrapped in birthday love, toasting a future as bright as the moment before you. The best gift is each other.
Your career has been nothing short of amazing so far, and there's a long career ahead. But your personal life has changed dramatically too. You mentioned 24 years ago. That's hard to imagine that you, being 19 and a half now, have a 24-year-old son. But there are others involved in your life too. Tell us about them.
That's right. So as I was making my way through medical school, I met my now husband. His name's Paul. He was a little farther along, and we dated for several years, did the long distance thing. He actually lived in New York when I was in Arizona. So that gave kind of the cool factor there. And we did get married, and now we have 2 more boys. So we have 3 boys. My oldest son is an incredible older brother. He has since graduated from college and is just finishing up flight school to be a commercial pilot. So
good for him.
Is happy and healthy and doing wonderful.
So tell us the inspiration for Love Mom.
I've written a couple of books before, and they're all about health policy and healthy living. And while I'm passionate about that, I'm so passionate about being my mom, or being a mom, I should say. And when I was given the opportunity to tell my story, the idea kind of evolved from there. It's like, well, yes, I do have a unique story, but there are so many other stories. Imagine if I could tell other people's stories as well. So while I poured my heart into my chapter, my story, I asked a lot of my friends that I work with, that I don't work with, and I got a lot of people to contribute stories into this book. And we touch on all the topics. We touch on depression, postpartum, miscarriage, divorce, blended families, adoption. I mean, divorce, anything that you can think of. We tend to always put our best face forward on social media and kind of on TV and stuff. And people think it's all rainbows and butterflies. But the reality is, we're all dealing with very similar challenges. And when you read other people's stories, you're able to get little tidbits of information that maybe motivate you, maybe help you kind of support you in something that you're feeling. And so oftentimes I know that we can feel isolated and alone, but at the end of the day, we're kind of all in it together. And I was just so grateful to be able to put this together.
Now, the stories, how did they come to you? Did you reach out to people telling you were looking for the stories? Did you mention it on the air? How did you get this wealth of wonderful stories beyond your own personal circle?
So I reached out to many people that I'm on air with, and but I wanted to make sure that these are people that I had a personal relationship with. This wasn't just anybody who wants to be in it can be in it. I needed someone that I have a personal relationship with. And if you read the book, at the beginning of their chapters, I have an introduction to it, and I tell you a little story about our relationship. But on air, we also announced it as well, and we asked for submissions of some great stories. And we did. We sifted over 100 stories looking for them, and we found 2 incredible stories that there's no way you couldn't have included them. I also reached out to some that are not my colleagues. One was actually a patient of mine. One is someone I've known for decades who is a Gold Star mom. And it just really rounded out the collaboration of stories. And I asked all the moms, the only prerequisites that I require for this book is that you peel back the layers of that onion. I need you to be your authentic self, because if you're not showing your weakness, if you're not showing your vulnerability, your highs and your lows, then that's not right for this book. And they did, and they turned out wonderful. And even in the center of the book is this color pamphlet where we all also submitted scriptures and quotes and just some little tidbits of advice, kind of for easy reference, that I just think turned out great. Yeah. And there's pictures in the book too.
I see. Tell me, you mentioned faith. Was faith always an important part of your life? Were there peaks and valleys in the depth of your faith? And how has faith been one of the assists that you would been able to call upon and lean on as you've gone through the trials and tribulations in your own life, and then the achievements and the successes as well?
I go into this in detail in the book, and my faith has always remained very strong. During the time of my pregnancy, when I was 17, I did have a bit of a tumultuous relationship with my church, in the fact that they nicely asked that maybe I don't go to some of the teen masses and some of the sessions.
I saw that. I was struck by that,
where I could negatively influence some of the other kids. So that was very hurtful. But it didn't turn me off from my faith. In fact, I actually clutched even stronger, figuratively and literally, to my Bible at the time, because I needed to draw sources of strength. And for me, being able to look for some of the scriptures and just feeling like there's someone else there, someone else guiding you, someone who, no matter how hard it feels, they're not going to put in front of you more than you can actually take. I mean, that provides a comfort. And that is why, there's actually data and research that show, mental health is improved and feelings of fulfillment is better, those who attend services and have faith.
We have a weekly newsletter we do around here called the Celebrations Pulse. And on Easter Sunday, we wrote about the impact of church-going communities, and how it's one of the elements we think that, because of the tail off in church attendance and people feeling that they are of faith, that we think it's a contributor to the lack of positive, healthy communities, and contributing to people's sense of loneliness, which we think is of epidemic proportions. And we talk about that and write about that a lot. Do you practice an active faith? Do you go to a particular church? And tell us about that and how it becomes a part of who you are in the community, one of the communities you're a part of.
So a Catholic, I married a Jewish man. And so we kind of have done everything we can to kind of combine the faiths. And we celebrate both of our religions in our house and with our families, and try to be as
You just get more holidays. Come on, it's a
right.
You got to celebrate Ramadan too. Let's get it going.
Yeah, and I'm very grateful because my husband's sister she's actually Orthodox, and she is able to introduce my children to a lot more of their faith than that I don't know anything about their faith, and so it's really nice that they're able to draw from both. And while I don't feel like I need to insist on the children follow a certain path, I want them to be educated on both. And I truly believe that faith should just be what you feel inside. And so my children are being kind of brought up to be very aware of, involved in both of them. And I'm very excited to see what they decide when they grow up.
We have the same thing going on in my family, and I just think it's great to see the little kids excited about Christmas and the Christmas tree right next to the menorah. It's
Only a fire hazard sometimes.
only keep it electric, please. So tell me, what's next for you now? You teach at Memorial Sloan Kettering, which is an unbelievable place with an unbelievable brand in a field that's so important to you, the whole cancer research and treatment world. You have your media career. You're now, once again, a published author. I suspect this work will have legs to it. I think this book will cause you to hear and learn about so many more stories about terrific women who are mothers and the special things they do. It's of interest to us here at the Flowers Companies because we're always celebrating moms on a year-round basis, and then we sort of crescendo those activities leading right up to Mother's Day. So family, wonderful family, kids coming along great. One son now out on his own after school, pursuing his career, which sounds kind of exciting too. So what's next for you, Nicole?
Well, I am still a full-time.
What are the other boxes you haven't checked yet?
Well, I'm still a full-time working physician. So I think people kind of forget that about me, that I still am full-time in the hospital. I still drive so much.
At Memorial?
At Memorial Sloan Kettering, yeah. I'm an associate professor there and full-time breast radiologist, and I'm certainly very fulfilled professionally. I myself actually have an autoimmune disease, like many women, and I've kind of put in a lot of my heart and soul in the last year or two because I am very much into some natural remedies to kind of combat inflammation and give energy and kind of some of that. And so, one day someone asks, well, what do you do? And I'm like, well, maybe I should share that with people. So I'm in the process of launching a nutraceutical brand, DropRx, of these like liquid herbal compounds that I use personally. So I'm an open book. If I'm doing it, you should be. I want to share it with everyone.
So I'm sure you sit down at a dinner, you're out to dinner, group dinner, someone's home, and someone recognizes you or hears who you are and what you do. Those other moms in the room are saying, oh my God, I'm exhausted every night. How does she do it? Is that a frequent question?
Well, to be fair, I'm exhausted every night too.
Good.
Yeah, I do kind of get that a lot, but honestly, maybe it just looks on paper that I'm doing a lot more. But we're all busy and we all have our own stuff. And I just think we all have different types of crazy, but it is just a crazy world. And I function much better when I'm busy. I think I'm a better mother, a better doctor, a better human. And so when I have too much downtime, I get a little wrapped up in my head. So I like to be busy.
I'm glad to hear about the work you're about to do, which is the next path you're going down, because I think there's so much to it. I've been reading a lot about people like you and how you're looking at these diseases. And the question is it genetic? Is it metabolic? What role does diet play here? What role does the environment play here? It all comes into play. And we need people like you who are living in that world, who understand the science of it, to help give us a guide to things. And the more I read, the more I try and get educated in your world, the more it seems the common refrain I'm hearing is it comes back to processed food and sugar. And sugar is the fuel that bad things are used for bad things in our bodies.
And there is going to be a lot of truth to that, but here's what I can tell you. And as someone who delivers a cancer diagnosis to someone just about every single day, you can do everything right. You could be a nutrition expert, a fitness guru, you stay out of the sun, you do everything right, and bad things can still happen. You could still get a cancer, and some cancers, you couldn't have done anything to prevent it. So my mantra is kind of everything in moderation, because don't be so strict with yourself when it comes to exercise or diet or lifestyle that you're not actually enjoying your life. And I mean, you'll love this one. Like my dad used to always say to me, don't forget to stop and smell the flowers. Well, that's how I feel.
What a wise man.
Isn't he? He really is. But so for me, I really try to live in that moment, and I do want to make sure I am enjoying my life. I will have a glass of champagne if I want one. And by the way, I love to have a cookie every now and then, which is perfect for Mother's Day because who doesn't love flowers and cookies? And
I see some Cheryl's cookies in your future.
it's you absolutely right. And actually, you can get Cheryl's cookies and Love Mom. We're actually putting together a package for that.
I love this.
Really? I mean, because who doesn't love cookies and flowers? But actually, what we're doing is they're putting together a bundle on Cheryls.com. And if you buy it, you get obviously the cookies, which in my opinion is the good stuff, and has some sugar, but it's Mother's Day and you're allowed to have it.
And you're doing it in moderation.
And everything in moderation. But you get a code for an ebook, and also the person you gift the cookies to gets it as well. Seems like.
And I hope they choose to share their stories with you when they read your book and they get that bundle and they're thinking about that mom, their mom. They're thinking about their sister who's a remarkable mom. I hope and expect that they'll share those stories with you for the next book. And I'm so happy to hear about your newest interest and how you're going to help us further. You have so much to give. You've done so much living in such a short time, and you're just a remarkable person. It's not a secret it's not a secret why you're successful at everything you try. It's that energy, that enthusiasm, that zest for life, and that stick-to-itiveness. So last question I'll ask you is, when your dad reminds you to stop and sell the flowers, what is it you're doing that's your smell of flowers?
First of all, thank you for everything you just said. I mean, that actually almost brought tears to my eyes. He first told me that when I was like 7 years old. I remember we were walking in the street where he actually reminded me to literally stop and smell the flowers. And so I try to keep that. And for me, stopping and smell the flowers is my children. I love sitting at soccer games and basketball practices and doing homework every night. And while for a lot that can seem like a chore, and it is, it's something we have to do, but I just love it. I am the parent.
But it's something you get to do too.
Exactly. And so
when it's over, you will miss it. I assure you. As a grandpa who got home late Saturday night, early Sunday morning from a trip this week, I get up to a text in the morning from my 3 kids. Here's what kids' activities we have going on today, Sunday. And I got to 4 of them. It was a little colder on the soccer field, on the lacrosse fields than I wanted it to be this past Sunday, but I wouldn't have been anywhere else. It was such a kick that people said, wow, you must be exhausted. You got the 4 different lacrosse games. That's not tiring at all. Well, Nicole, congratulations on the book. Congratulations on all you've achieved. We can't wait to see your next project. And when are we going to see you on TV next?
Tomorrow. Definitely over the next several days. And I'll be hosting Fox and Friends on soon.
And you have some material in here on people who are friends at Fox. And I love the story you shared about Ainsley. I think she's a special person. Got to know her a little bit, but it seems like everybody I've met over there is really nice, and no exception, you.
Thank you so much.
Have a great one. We'll all be running out for Mother's Day to get Love Mom, and maybe there'll be some cookies with it. Who knows?
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Go to 1-800-Flowers.com.
Find the perfect gift.
And wow the people you love.
Wow. This is amazing.
Whether you want to say happy birthday,
So cute.
Or I love you.
I love you too.
thinking of you.
Wow.
Go to 1-800-Flowers.com.
Celebrate the people you love.
Well, I hope you enjoyed what you heard, and I know I'll be sharing it forward. I hope you get to as well. Let's keep the conversation going. Follow me along on Twitter at Jim1800Flowers and on LinkedIn at Jim McCann. Hope to talk to you soon.